Right, here we go. I'm having so much trouble with this iMovie again and the sound. Just even getting the sound is driving me absolutely bloody nuts. Anyway, hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You know, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm going to do the Astrakhan's feather. I'm going to do the latest. I'll just stop this waving around this microphone. I'm going to do another episode of the Astrakhan's feather because it's been a couple of weeks. I've been off on holiday and I went back to the Hawkesbury. I had all the best intentions to do something, regular on here during those 2 weeks, but I just didn't, I did a mountain of gardening and read a few books. So, not time misspent by any means. Anyway, interesting thing, isn't it, about Christmas, though, right? So in Britain and Australia, often you wish people a Merry Christmas, and in America it has to be Happy Holidays or Merry Holidays or whatever. And Arthur Snell, very English name, isn't it? He's an ex-English diplomat, and he's got a podcast called Not All Doom. If it was me, with the way I look at things, it'd be called You Are Doomed. But anyway, he's a good bloke, and he discusses current affairs. He has some great guests on. Have a look at it, right? Because it's well worth listening to, just for a bit of, what can you say, normality, no shouting, no swearing, no nonsense. Just before I get into the Astrakhan's feather, I was trapped in the car. I was driving, but I was trapped in the car the other day when my son had Joe Rogan on, and an episode where he's talking to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the world's richest man, just in case you didn't know. But he doesn't know everything. Of course he doesn't. How could he, right? How could he, I'm probably the world's poorest man, but I don't understand a lot of things. But what do? I seek out experts. Not Musk. Oh, he's an expert on everything, he is, right? He's an expert on everything. It reminds me of the mayor of Broken Hill Council here in New South Wales. He knows everything. He knows everything. If a story comes up about plumbing, he knows the ins and outs of it. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Elon Musk is the same. And he was saying, basically, it gave me a headache, I've got to tell you. I couldn't turn it off because my son's got it on, right? And he was going on. Joe Rogan said to him, well, what is all this stuff about cows? They were talking about eating steak and eggs for breakfast. Apparently that's what they do. Most people have toast with a bit of jam on it, but no, not these blokes. Steak and eggs. And, of course, you can bet your bottom dollar they're not cooking it themselves, right? Somebody else is doing it for them. I'll get off this pony in a minute. Just bear with me. And so anyway, what he was saying, Musk is saying, well, cows have no impact on the environment whatsoever, as if he's an expert. Anyway, we all know it's bollocks, right? It's nonsense, and I'm not going to go into it. I'm really not going to. But as a journalist, right, I'd seek out experts to tell me about it and give me the story from an expert, somebody who knows what they're talking about, not Elon bloody Musk. The sooner he fucks off to Mars, the better, if you ask me. Anyway, there you go. You may not agree with that. I don't know. Let's get back onto the Astrakhan's feather. And the other thing is, I'm going to put some details at the bottom here. If you want to buy the book, you can. And there's a few other books you can buy as well, right? Just to, allow me to put on some extra lights, for example, and pay for the electricity. Anyway, here we go. So what's happened is then, there's been a murder. We've been introduced to Holly Dreyfus, who's a journalist or editor of the paper. Her father's mysteriously disappeared. Christ is having a bit of a rest because his wife's obviously dead, and we don't really know why at this moment or how that's going to unfold. Anyway, basically, somebody's been killed. A couple of people have been killed, and Karen Allen, who's a police inspector from the UK, has come over to Australia, and she is investigating. Anyway, there we go. So here we go. We're going to join. I'm just changing it a bit. I'm going to tell you something else as well. We're going to join Benny Benson, Double B, as he's often called, and Cooper Blackwelder, who are the two local police constables there. And we're going to join them again. And Blackwelder's just been kind of ripped up a bit by Karen Allen, who's kind of made him look a bit foolish, because he is a bit foolish, all right? And anyway, they're in the car, Benny and Coop. And Coop says, here's the other thing, actually. I'm just going to tell you this, right? Sorry to digress slightly, but I'm changing the tense in the book, right? Now, many books are written in the past tense, and they say you should never write in the first tense. I've no idea why, but I'm doing it because it's more like a film script, right? So I'm just changing it as I go, so just bear with me with that, right? Anyway, so Coop says, the pommy bitch thinks she's so fucking smart. Well, she is, thinks Benny, who is staring wide-eyed out the windscreen as Coop guns it. In fact, Double B is holding the side of his seat so tight the leather suddenly squeals like a baby pig. Coop throws him a frown. What was that? Watch the road, Coop. Ben coming up. Fuck the Ben, says Coop, and slides a police car round the corner, tyres screaming. School, 40k, says Benny. Yeah, says Coop. The car slows so fast as they zip past the school sign with its flashing orange lights and 40 roundel a blur. Benny reckons his brain might squeeze out through his eyes. They see Christ standing next to a silver Mercedes Benz with a blonde lady. Will you look at the tits on that, says Coop. Benny shakes his head as the blonde gets in her car and they pull up in a tornado of red dust. Segue here. Bone Mountain Library is cool and quiet as a church on Monday. I like that line, right? I do. I like that line. Because I like it, I'm going to say it again. Bone Mountain Library is cool and quiet as a church on Monday. Holly pushes through the tall mahogany doors and not for the first time stands and marvels at the soft sunlight filtering through tall stained glass windows running church-like either side of the imposing building. The panels didn't depict the usual religious scenes but rather featured writers, from successful locals to literary titans, authors of fact, novelists, men and women of letters and poetry. Look long and hard enough, you'd find somebody you'd read or at least heard of. In the centre of the soaring Georgian 5-floor building, a vast rotunda of local sandstone knitted the structure together. The central domed roof, featuring stained glass panels of ruby red, china blue, canary yellow and verdant green, bathed the library's flagstone floor in a rainbow of colours. In the short winter days, you could gaze up and wonder at a night filled with stars, while a full moon lit the inside of the ancient building with an ethereal, ghostly glow. At ground level, islands of cubed shelves and reading desks, handcrafted in red ironbark, felled from the surrounding mountain slopes, glowed lustrous as scrub honey. Bankers' lights of green glass and bronze bathed the desks in pools of soft light. Literally miles of bookshelves curved around the walls of the rotunda on each of the 5 levels. Stone walkways reached by chunky stone steps either end of each floor gave easy access to the shelves, with taller shelves reached by wooden library ladders on steel runners. Ever since she could remember, Holly had spent hours in the library, both in the main room and upon the circular stone balustraded walkways high above, where the air was always cool. When she was a child, and truth be told sometimes even now, if it was especially quiet, she'd lie down on a walkway floor all alone, and as the cool of the stone shivered through her back, she'd gaze up at the stained glass and let the coloured light splash her face and make her smile. Some evenings she'd silently watch as the sun sank and the light turned dark blue to velvet black pricked by silver stars. She jumped as a claw-like hand latched on her shoulder. "Help you, dearie?" "Oh, Bernie, you gave me such a scare." Bernice Reed, tut-tutted, is a new character, yet again. Important. Bernice Reed tut-tutted and adjusted her bun of grey hair with both hands. What most people didn't know was Bone Mountain Library, though open to the public, was not a public library at all. It had been in Bernice Reed's family for hundreds of years. The building had been dreamt up by her great-grandfather Rufus, who employed convicts to work on both the design, one of them being an ace forger and so very handy with the quill and his imagination, and the build too, but Rufus insisted on paying decent wages, much to the disgust of several local landowners who got convicts, or slaves as Rufus called them, for free from the government. It was said Rufus had secret passages built into the library and several convicts had escaped, but Holly suspected that was just local gossip. Still, the library was large and mysterious and sat in the cobblestone Georgian Square just up from the police station, facing the courthouse, an old convict arms public house, creating a colonial ambience that most of the mountain had no difficulty feeling. There was definitely something about the solid stone buildings and the quiet square they inhabited that spoke strongly of the past. Few people, even some who'd lived in Bone Mountain for generations, realised the library wasn't council-owned because Bernie Reed ran it just like a local library, allowing anyone to borrow books as long as they lived in the township and its surrounds. But if the books didn't come back, you could expect a visit from Bernice Reed, and as Boners knew, he didn't want that. One even said, "The woman will hunt you down, yeah?" The woman might be small, thin and ancient, but her eyes could sure make you think twice about keeping wind in the willows too long. "Any news?" she said. Holly breathed through her nose. "Car crash out at Saracen." Bernie shook her head impatiently. "I already know about that." Holly looked at the old grey eyes sparkling with intelligence and wit despite the librarian's advanced age. And not for the first time she wondered how Bernie Reed often knew about stuff before she did. Miss Reed raised her eyebrows and Holly said, "No, nothing, Bernie." Her eyes teared up. "Where could he be?" Bernie smoothed her tight tweed grey shirt, shook her head, bit her lip, and looked like she might cry too. She put a hand on Holly's shoulder. "I wish I could tell you, dear, really I do." Bernie Reed was her father's best friend and confidant. Armand, who distrusted computers and treated the internet with what he called healthy skepticism, spent hours in the library searching out information for his articles, chiefly turning pages, steaming cup of coffee at his elbow, freshly prepared for Bernie for her old friend without even asking. She heard his footsteps on the flagstones outside or saw his burly shadow just before he stepped through the double mahogany doors, and she got the percolator on. Bernie had one of the best collections of local books and pamphlets, maps and copious historical documents ever compiled about Bone Mountain and what she called its environs. It was more comprehensive than anything the massive state library owned. Indeed, on occasion, the city library had borrowed works from Bernie for show in its large municipal libraries. Holly knew if anyone had any idea, I'm just going to take a word out there. I'm taking the word "that" out, right? I tell journalists all the time, don't use the word "that" unless you really need to, right? So this read, Holly knew that if anyone, take that out. Holly knew if anyone had any idea. It's better, right? Flows better. Holly knew if anyone had any idea where Armand Dreyfus might be, that person would be Bernie Reed, and it was simply inconceivable Armand would disappear without letting his old friend know. But that's exactly what seemed to have happened, which made his disappearance even more puzzling. All right, I'm going to leave it there, partly because I need to do stuff tonight. It's boring. Washing. I'm tightening my microphone base up in case you're wondering. I've got to do a bit of washing of plates and things, and have a shower, I suppose, and then I'm going to get to bed. So anyway, thanks for listening. And yeah, look, if you're interested in buying a copy of Astrakhan's Feather, just message me, right? Somebody message me. Nobody messages me, right? I was reading a thing the other day and about this. It was on LinkedIn. Oh my God, I hate the posts on LinkedIn. I really do. But anyway, I happened to see it because I was just checking to see if anybody looked at my profile. No, nobody has. Anyway, not to worry. And there was this girl there, and she's a young girl, right? I don't know what her name is. I can't remember. But apparently she's an influencer, right? And she started when she was 14. And she said, well, anyway, there was some interesting things about it. But she was basically talking about, how she became an influencer, really, I suppose. And she said, always keep doing the videos, even though you don't think anybody's watching, because somebody is watching. Nobody's watching what I'm doing, right? But if you are, send me a comment, even if it's like "fuck off," right? Just send me a comment because it'd be nice to know if people are actually reading it. Anyway, there you go. All right, you have a good evening or a morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and we'll talk again soon. Clearly, I'm back, so that's all good. All right, take care, folks. I'm just trying to find my mouse cursor. Where the? Here it is. Here it is.